Welcome in the Inner Game podcast. This is a podcast where we have conversations with CEOs, with founders about their insights, about struggles, about doubts, breakthroughs that made from them great leaders in their industry or in the field where they're working. And today I have the honor to have a conversation with James Bampfield. And James is the co-founder of Quinx. And James, first of all, thank you so much for making time and being here in the podcast. And my first question is, how are you?
How am I today? Now,
Yeah, today in general, let's say.
I feel quite clear today. I feel quite relaxed. I'm not no strong emotional color, I would say. Sort of in quite a contented space today.
That's what we need, no, today?
I guess so. Well, it's what I have.
Yeah, yeah. James, I'm very glad that we can have a conversation. Um, I'm not going to introduce you so deeply. I will let you talk. Um, we had like three questions, and it's about leadership. You told me that you couldn't very well prepare the questions, which is even better. Um, the first one is, what was your opinion? What was your belief about leadership that you had to let go in your life?
I think one of the main things about leadership of any form, and I think there are many different forms, is letting go of the idea that you need to know everything
Mhm,
in order to lead.
mhm. And what does that exactly mean? So you,
It
uh,
means you don't have to know all the answers and, tell people what to do and know how everything's going to turn out. I mean, it doesn't mean you don't need to come with a vision and a direction and all that kind of thing, but there's so much you don't know. And I think leaders need to be very honest with that and not pretend they really know and they've got everything under control when they haven't.
so
Like one of my old colleagues always says, is that, a leader is in charge, but they're not in control. That's
yeah.
from Andre Pelgrim's, and I think it's a very good way of putting it.
Mhm. But then what happens? You don't know. You don't have an answer. So what happens then in
You express that, and usually in when I'm in a leadership role and I really don't know something, I say it because it means that that knowledge, that information is going to come from somewhere else other than me.
Mhm.
And will usually be in the group that I'm working with, or the team that I'm working with, is that the answer will come from them.
Mhm. Mhm. So that was the opinion, the belief that you had, like I have to know everything, and that shifted. Is it in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very comfortable with not knowing everything.
Hmm.
I don't I don't feel that need. I think the other thing I let go of is the idea, um, yeah, that there's a sort of standard good way of leading.
Hmm.
That there is no seven steps to good leadership.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's many books with that title, but I don't believe in it. I think each person has to find their own unique style of leadership. And you get great leaders who are introverts, you get great leaders who are extroverts, you get all kinds. So I think a lot of leadership development, it doesn't mean you can't learn from other leaders. Of course you can. And you learn from getting feedback from the people you lead. But there is no standard, because the part of good leadership is authenticity. And by definition, you can't have standard authenticity, because if you did, it wouldn't be authentic,
Mhm.
because you're borrowing someone else's idea of how to be a leader.
Mhm. And when we talk about your industry, how would you describe your industry actually?
Well, so here's the thing. So I mentioned to you, I'm really not a conventional leader. So Quinx, the company, the main company that I work with, we're more like a group of doctors
Mhm.
who happen to come together, and we all know each other well, and we work together.
Mhm.
But it's not like I'm the leader who's at the top of an organizational pyramid.
Mhm. Mhm.
So most of my leadership comes out in my work itself rather than the internal organization of Quinx.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Quinx only meets 2 or 3 times a year.
Mhm.
As a system, we're all independent. Again, you've got to see it more like doctors. It's more like a Vakman,
Mhm. Mhm.
a craftsman, an
Mhm.
artist.
Mhm.
But I specialize in leading groups through transformative processes. And
Mhm.
then I very much have a leadership role.
Mhm.
But it's nearly always a temporary leadership role. But for those 2 or 3 days or whatever it is, I am the leader. Now that leader that is more as facilitator, but it's still definitely a leadership role. And of course, I take leadership roles in some projects in life as well. But I would
Mhm.
say my main leadership happens in the workshop with a group of people around me. And that's a
And
particular form of leadership.
mhm. And that answer that you say you don't exactly have to know everything, does it reflect on working with groups? Is it
Yeah,
especially,
totally.
yeah, it's
Totally.
yeah, yeah.
Because the whole point is that some of the wisdom, the knowledge is in the field of the group. So if I have the idea, all the knowledge is in my mind.
Mhm.
That's already a mistaken assumption,
Mhm.
because every group is different. And, um, facilitative leadership, by definition, it means that you're also encouraging information to come from the group. You're almost also encouraging leadership to come from the group, or
Mhm.
certainly what I call personal leadership.
Mhm.
So I do think it's different. I'm not a CEO who's at the top of a big building,
Mhm.
running a big company. That's not the sort of leadership that I take. It's a different as a facilitator. And for me, leadership is broad. Leadership can happen when you're walking down the street. Leadership is often bringing what's needed in a moment. If you see a problem, or if you see somebody needs help, or if I see this conflict between people in my tennis team or something,
Mhm.
then taking leadership is in the moment, seeing what's missing and bringing that.
Mhm.
Do you see what I mean? It doesn't leadership, I don't think, is just the property of an organizational role.
It's a way of life
Well,
or an
yeah,
attitude, an attitude.
yes, it's an attitude.
Mhm.
It's an attitude that I'm going to take responsibility
Mhm.
for myself and what I see in my environment.
And is leadership also a way to give space to the not knowing, either from you or from anyone in a group?
In my version, yes.
Mhm.
In my version, yes. Because especially if you're taking groups through a transformative process, it, it's simply not something you can plan.
Mhm.
So the most important learning moments, which you have to facilitate, often simply appear in the moment with what you see.
Mhm.
So you can come in with your plan, how you're going to run the workshop for the next 2 days. But there's always, what I've learned is if you stick too tightly to the plan, you'll fulfill your plan, but transformative learning won't have happened because
Mhm.
you missed an opportunity where you maybe had to rip up your plan and say, oh, wow, we're going in a direction I hadn't expected now.
Mhm. Can you put some light on transformative experience of learning? Can you give an example?
Yeah. So transformative learning, I contrast with sort of conventional cognitive learning.
Mhm.
So most of the learning at school is just conventional cognitive learning. You know, you learn how to use a new mathematical theorem, or you learn facts about history, or you learn how to play tennis.
Mhm.
This is not necessarily transformative learning. Transformative learning happens on a deeper level, which is not just cognitive. Something shifts in, it's not just adding information or adding a skill. It's something in your identity shifts and the way you experience yourself and the world. So our longest and most intensive training is called leading by being. So
Mhm.
that's a process we take leaders through over the course of a year.
Mhm.
So what we hope they come out with is not someone just with a whole load of new skills, but that it will actually involve some sort of identity shift where it actually feels different to be them at the end
Mhm.
of it.
Mhm.
They feels different inside. I have more contact with my body. I have more contact with my feeling world. I have more contact with my intuitions. And I look at the world differently.
Mhm.
And I experience relationships differently.
Mhm.
Other people or to nature or whatever me. That's more the transformative learning.
Mhm. And in that way, your view on leadership shifted from I don't have to know it anymore, everything.
No,
That's what you
no. But I don't want to underplay. It doesn't mean just anyone can come off the street and facilitate a group through
Mhm.
transformative learning. So I value my experience enormously.
Mhm.
But what my experience has told me is I don't need to know everything.
Mhm. Mhm. Here, yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Mhm.
But you need to have a certain confidence
Mhm. And
so most facilitators, that's people in my trade, they are very proficient in a particular method.
mhm.
So they learn exactly how to run a meeting. They learn exactly how to use a learning method, or like with you, they learn a breathing methodology.
Mhm.
And that's great. We need these methods.
Mhm.
But to be a really great facilitator, you need more than a method.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a lot of facilitators are too attached to their methods.
Mhm.
So they tend to just see things from the lens of that method. Now, of course, we should use methods. It helps people to learn.
Mhm.
But as a facilitator and that kind of leader, you'll be a better facilitator if you're not limited to your method.
Mhm. That's where it comes to not have to know everything.
Exactly. And what I call working with the emergent,
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
what is happening in front of you and capturing that
Mhm. Mhm.
and communicating that
Mhm.
and so on. Yeah.
Great. A second question, James, is can you give an example of one really impactful a turning point about your view on leadership, like one pivotal moment in your career or life, let's say?
Mm, that's a good question.
Where your view on leadership really shifted? A situation, an event, um, I see you thinking on all those situations,
Many.
all the, yeah.
I'll give you a couple, but I mean, these are just, these are in a way they're crazy examples, but they're what comes to mind.
Hmm.
So the first one was a bit connected to what I'm talking about,
Hmm.
allowing yourself not to know everything. So I was attending a Vipassana retreat.
Hmm.
Do you know Vipassana?
Yes, yes, I do.
It's a 10-day retreat. It's a pretty tough assignment. And certainly the first time I did it many years ago, yeah, it was hard work. You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're sitting all day and so on. Um, and in the evening, you would hear the founder of the Vipassana movement is an Indian teacher called Goenka, who's
Hmm.
a really cool guy. And you hear his voice in all the tapes going, just be vigilant and be alert and just observe and all this kind of stuff. And he's great. And what he's achieved with the Vipassana movement is unbelievable.
Goanka, you said?
Goenka is his,
Goenka. Okay.
yeah. If you YouTube or Google, you'll find loads.
Hmm.
I don't know if he's still alive, actually. And then in the evening, he would give a Dharma talk. That means a talk of, sort of Buddhist theory, if you like.
Hmm.
Um, and then at one moment, and it was great, and I was lapping it up and learning. And then he suddenly started talking about sex.
Hmm.
And I realized, and it was so funny, and he was there with his wife. So I really looked up to him, and I suddenly realized when I heard him talking about sex, I thought, Jesus Christ, this guy doesn't know anything about sex. I mean, really, what rubbish is coming out of his mouth? And I could just see by looking at the way he held his body and the way he reacted with his wife, I thought, my God. And that is a bit what that is where I really learned to be skeptical, because you can fall in love with big leaders,
Hmm.
charismatic leaders.
Hmm.
And where they often go wrong is they think that because they really know something, then they
Hmm.
kind of know everything.
Hmm.
And then I really realized the fallacy of the sort of guru teacher, great leader who knows about everything. He knows some things very well and other things, no thanks.
Hmm.
I'm not going to go to you for help around sex. And that was somehow a moment, because I was still quite young, to
About
really,
what age?
I was about 25, 26.
That's young.
Um, so to be careful with what we say we think we know. And so again, allowing the unknown.
And that was absent there?
That was totally absent. He
Mm.
just came as an authority on whatever he talked about, which was just about everything. I am the authority.
Yeah, you have to follow and listen.
Yes. Follow and listen and believe.
Mm. Extremely dangerous, actually, no?
Well, it is, but you get that in politics too. That's the problem with the big charismatic leader.
Hmm.
They start believing they know everything. That's why I so value the not knowing.
And was this prior to your what you described before? That was really prior because you were 25, 26. So that was really your first. pivotal moment, we could say, in about
Well, I don't know
leadership?
about first. That's just what came up for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know, this will probably shock um, your listeners, but the other example comes up of a time when I learned to trust, and it's a dangerous thing I'm saying here, okay? And it's a
Mm-hmm.
crazy example, and it's not, I don't know if you would call it real leadership, but also when I was quite young, a bit later than what I'm talking about now, I think I was about 30. I used to give individual coaching sessions,
Mm-hmm.
but these coaching sessions were not just talking. I would also do sometimes some kind of body work, energetic work with
Mm-hmm.
the person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked quite well. And people came to me, they liked these individual sessions. It seemed to help them. And I remember I was in Croatia. I'd given a group workshop, and then people could ask for an individual session with me. And there was this woman, and we had some talking first. And again, I'm facilitating, I'm in the leadership role, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then halfway through the session, and then I started working more energetically and with the body. I'm also a trained masseur, so that's somewhere in my backpack.
Mm-hmm.
This was more, where do you touch to help the transformative learning process? Because transformative learning is never just mental.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and suddenly I got this urge to pull her hair. And she had a lot of hair. And of course, I resisted the urge. I thought, you can't possibly do that.
But like strongly, or just like
No,
pull the.
quite strongly, but the urge. But I didn't do it because I thought that you just can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking back now, I think I would have done it slightly differently, and I would have asked her permission. But in a way, that also takes some of the spontaneity out of it. So I put it to one side, this urge. I continued, but it just kept coming back to me, this intuition: pull her hair. I mean, I not with a sudden tug, but with some
Yeah.
force. I felt, if you're looking at the as an energetic system, I just felt there was a block there,
Mm.
or something. Anyway, so I did. And then finally, because it didn't go away, this urge, I thought, wow, I've just got to try it. Okay, I may end up, in trouble here. And I pulled her hair quite strongly for quite a while. Okay. And she didn't say anything at the time or respond, or I mean, I wasn't causing her pain, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, she could definitely feel it,
Mm-hmm.
or very little pain. And then and I still didn't know, oh my God, have I done something terrible? And then afterwards, I asked her, how was the session for you? And she said, well, the session was good, but the absolute best bit was when you pulled my hair. She said, I felt such a release. It's like all this tension up there. And what a learning for me.
What was the learning?
Yeah, to trust my intuitions,
Mm-hmm.
even when they're crazy. Now, I'm not saying you still got to be very careful. I'm not saying one should be reckless in these things. And looking back on it, like I said, I think the best thing would have just been to ask her permission. But I was not very experienced in those days. And I'd certainly been taught by a teacher who never asked permission for everything, for anything. So I didn't have the best models. That's how I would do it now. But the fact is, I did it and it really works. And I thought, okay,
But
I have to.
what was there? What was the reason that you felt that urge, and
I
what
don't
was
know.
she didn't say it?
No, no, it was just an intuition.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have these kinds of intuitions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I could have also just had the intuition don't you ever have the intuition when you hear somebody that, oh my God, they just need a hug?
I I wish I would have more of those intuitions, but yes, I have.
And over the years, I've learned to trust it. Doesn't mean one of the most dangerous things is for a leader to think that their intuitions are always right. That's
Hmm.
ridiculous,
Hmm.
utterly ridiculous. But I've learned to take my intuitions seriously,
Hmm.
even when they can take me in a strange direction.
Hmm.
Um, and intuitions come from, intuition is a complex phenomenon, and we don't have time to go into that now. But as you grow, as your experience grows, your intuitions also get sharper.
Hmm.
Once again, it doesn't mean they're always right,
Hmm.
but they do need to be listened to.
Hmm.
So that was that's what I mean about authenticity as a leader is finding one's inner guidance system, which I've called intuition there.
Hmm. Hmm. In a guidance
Does
system.
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice movement of starting with allowing to not know everything and going to the authenticity. But yeah, still that last question now
Okay.
to make it complete. Um, what is it that you do on a daily basis to keep that business running? Because how
Ah,
long are you busy in your with Quinx and everything you do? Because you told me you were 40 years ago in Bali.
yes, long time. Not,
Yeah.
yeah, probably was 40 years. 35 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long
What
have
do I
you
do? Like practices?
practices or routines or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
habits or to keep on moving, keep building that business, building
So
that.
there's two, or no, three. So I meditate a lot.
Hmm.
So I meditate definitely once a day, or mostly once a day. I do Qigong every day.
Hmm.
I usually, part of my meditation, my sitting meditation, I do breathing exercises as part of that.
Hmm.
Breathing is very important to me of keeping health. I take conventional exercise and sport a lot as well. I would say that is a habit I have. I'll go for a jog this afternoon in the sunshine, or I have a rowing machine. So physical practice is important to me. And the other is that is more that's sort of very individual, but I have relational practices in the sense that I surround myself as much as possible with people who I know I can go into a kind of feedback dialogue, who
Mm.
will keep me sharp and I will keep them sharp. So if I like to have people around me. I'm not saying I always enjoy it in the moment, but I like having people around me who will challenge me.
And that's on a daily basis or weekly or like
Well,
very
I
often?
think in my relationship, my marriage, it's not like we have a fixed time each week, but I think we definitely do that with each other. That's part of
Hmm.
our practice.
Hmm.
Um, it's not so much an official thing, or like I have three old friends, male friends, and we have one Zoom a month
Mm.
and bring all our story, and we're very good at supporting and challenging each other.
Hmm.
So it's these sort of relational reality checks, I think.
Does it has
To,
to do also with friendship for you?
it could be colleagueship,
Colleagueship, yeah.
but I think it's connected to friendship in the sense that that demands a certain intimacy.
Mm.
But if we give each other feedback,
Hmm.
if I say to you, wow, when you give that interview, Bat, you, on the one hand, you really give me space and you have a very nice manner of doing it.
Mhm,
But then when you spoke about that, this is all pretend,
mhm,
I found I got a bit lost. I
mhm,
lost contact with you
mhm,
because it meant I felt you were going off on a tangent in your own mind that wasn't so related to this here now. So if I said that to you,
mhm.
giving that feedback, and you were open to it, our intimacy would take a whole new step. And the
Yeah.
same if you gave feedback to me. Do you see what I mean? I think that's a very intimate process.
Mhm,
And it makes both of us vulnerable. It makes me vulnerable saying it. It makes you vulnerable receiving it
mhm,
because I might have it totally rejected. You might just say, "Oh, fuck off, you crazy Englishman." I didn't ask you for feedback or whatever,
mhm, mhm,
or or you might feel hurt by it, or these are quite awkward things to talk about.
mhm,
And but that's what leads to intimacy, which is not quite the same as friendship, I would say, but it's definitely part of friendship.
mhm, mhm.
And when
Oh,
I work in organizations, this is what I encourage them the whole time. They don't have to be best friends with each other, but there needs to be enough intimacy to give each other feedback,
mhm,
positive and negative.
mhm. Yeah, if you're open to this, I feel like it brings you closer to each other.
Exactly.
Mhm,
Yeah. And the reason people don't give feedback usually is because they think it'll harm the relationship, but often it's the opposite.
mhm,
Makes the relationship stronger.
mhm. Very powerful.
So that I'd say that there's these sort of more spiritual practices I do on my own, and then there's relational habits and practices I try and create in my life.
Mhm. Physical relationship, yeah. Very beautiful, really.
Thank
Thank,
you.
thank you for this. And for the listeners or those who listen and look at the podcast, keep on challenging yourself, I would say. Try to find those pivotal moments, the challenges of life. And we will see each other in the next episode with again a special man, a beautiful soul. And James, for this time, we would really want to thank you for your presence, for your answers, your insights, and your love that you shared.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed it enormously, Bat.
Mhm.